Hi, welcome to another episode of the Sankofa Pan-African series. Our guest on this episode is Tony Olaniji, who is an enthusiastic storyteller, story consultant, and writing instructor. He's an award-winning screenwriter, piano player, and piano teacher. He has also lectured at film festivals and workshops. Tony holds a bachelor's degree in English from Lagos State University. He is married with 2 children. He is the author of a new collection of 7 thrilling stories for children between the age of 4 and 11. A famished boy on an important journey is torn between completing the journey and eating the edible car conveying him to his destination. A gymnast mantis must confront a bug-hungry rooster that threatens her debut acrobatic show. A sheep has a skin disease that has turned her coat coarse and uncomfortable. In order to find a cure, she needs a barber. The only trouble is that the only barber available in the jungle is a leopard. These are just tips from Tony Olaniji's captivating anthology, which introduces children to new narrative experiences in really exciting new ways. Before we meet Tony Olaniji, who will be talking to us about this his new collection of stories for children titled Kiesi, please take a moment to click on the subscription button if you've not already done so. And don't forget to also click on the notification bell so we can always let you know when we have new episodes. Thank you. Tony Olaniji, welcome to the Sankofa Pan-African series. Congratulations on your new publication. I only got it a couple of days ago and I raced through it. They are really interesting stories for children. I'm sure viewers would love to hear you. Our viewers would love to hear you read from your collection. So can you pick us something to read?
So I read The Delicious Trip. There was a town where children had their own vehicles called kid cars. Taiwo and Kende wanted their own cars too, but first they had to go to a driving school. Mr. Bayo was the driving teacher. His driving tests were strange. When Taiwo and Kende went to Mr. Bayo, he gave them some driving tips. Later, he took them to his car garden where he kept the cars they would use for their driving test. Each car was covered with a giant tarpaulin. When he took off the sheets, the children saw a vegetable car and a bread car which had akara tires. "Wow!" they exclaimed. "We've never seen anything like this before." "Kende, the vegetable car is for you," said Mr. Bayo. "And Taiwo, yours is the bread car." "They are fantastic," said the children. "As you can see, this will be a delicious trip," said Mr. Bayo. "But be careful. Don't let the cars distract you. And you mustn't stop on the way." Mr. Bayo gave them 2 face masks. "They will protect your noses from dust," he said. Taiwo and Kende embarked on their trip, and the adventure began. They drove down a bumpy road. Their cars bumped and thumped, bouncing them up and down. Yet they continued on the journey. Then they drove down a dusty road. A lot of dust covered them. Still, they continued. Their face masks protected them. Finally, they drove down a smooth road where they saw their schoolmates. The schoolmates flagged them down, and Taiwo stopped. Kende didn't stop. She only waved at them and continued on the journey. When Taiwo had finished chit-chatting with his schoolmates, his stomach began to grumble. "I am hungry," he said. Well, take off your mask and look at your car, said one of the schoolmates. Taiwo removed his face mask. The aroma of bread and akara wafted towards his nose, and his mouth started to water. Let's eat, said the schoolmates. No, Taiwo said as he remembered Mr. Bayo's warning. But his stomach grumbled even more. What should I do? He wondered aloud. When you are hungry, you should eat, said his schoolmates. So Taiwo and his schoolmates gobbled the bread car until they were full. But now, what remained of the car couldn't be driven. Taiwo was stranded. Meanwhile, Kehinde completed her trip successfully. Her vegetable car was in good condition when she arrived at Mr. Bayo's car garden. You've passed the test, said Mr. Bayo. You will get your kid car tomorrow. When Taiwo didn't arrive, Mr. Bayo and Kehinde decided to go find him. They found him with his head drooped beside the half-eaten bread car. Please, give me one more chance, Taiwo pleaded. It's okay, said Mr. Bayo. I'll do another test for you tomorrow. Thank you, Mr. Bayo, Taiwo said as he leapt for joy. This time, young man, make sure you are not distracted, said Mr. Bayo. Never again, said Taiwo as he shook his head vigorously.
It is such a lovely story that I'm sure just delighted, Imagine a car made from bread and akara, fried bean cakes,
Fried bean cake, yeah.
So what inspired this particular story?
Okay, so I got the inspiration for the delicious trip when I was in a bus, popularly called Danfo here in Lagos, Nigeria. And so if you are familiar with the Danfo drivers, you know that they are always impatient. So one day I was in that bus, and when the Danfo driver was moving, suddenly he met a private car owner along the way. And the private car owner too was trying to maneuver a pothole in front of him. But the Danfo driver was impatient. He said, "Okay, move this car, let me pass. Are you driving an egg?" So when he said, "Are you driving an egg?" an idea struck me that, okay, you could drive a car that has eggs as tires. And other images, began to flash in my mind. That was the genesis of the story.
I mean, growing up in Nigeria, growing up Yoruba, you would have been raised with all kinds of traditional stories, So, and I noticed that sometimes you have taken traditional stories, but you have not reproduced them traditionally. You have tweaked them. You have made them more relevant, to children today. And I'll give you an example of that. The calabash, the story about the calabash and the river. I'm very familiar with that story, but not the way you have produced it. So what is it about the specific traditional stories that you have taken? What makes them different from other story collections of stories out there for children? What makes them unique?
What makes it unique? The stories there, they are not totally new. Yeah, because we know that there are no new stories anyway. So they are not totally new. They are just, normal, scenarios, but done in special ways. It's like, for instance, there's one folk story, Yoruba folk story in the collection. Anybody who is Yoruba will easily identify the source of that story. But so what I did was to, take a familiar, material, then take it in a different direction. The collection has two sections. The very first section was for children between the ages of 4 to 7. Then the second section was for the children between the ages of 8 to 11. So that's another unique, feature about it, because you see, it's like you are having two books for the price of one.
You took on some really very serious issues, but you did it in a way that children can relate to. I know you took on the issue of bullying, emotional bullying. Yes. So, but what I love is the way in which you have handled it. It's a way in which children can see themselves either as someone who, without giving wittingly or unwittingly, has been bullying others. Because most children might think bullying is only when you hit physically, but there's emotional and psychological bullying, which is what you've done, you know. And I love the way in which you presented it so that children will see themselves in it, you know, and know that even snickering at a student, you know, just because they cannot talk like you know, is a way of bullying them and can actually drive them to extreme actions. And it's done in a way that I can just see children of that age, you know, reading and enjoying and learning from. So what is it about the specific traditional stories that you have taken that you know made you decide to tweak them?
Okay, you see, because while we were growing up, what you referred to as traditional stories were the stories that we heard. You know, we were told all manner of stories, and those stories, they were actually situated in, you know, rural areas, you know, farmlands, you know, them some fantastical ones among them. They were situated in the sky, underneath the water, and everything. So most of the storylines you could see nature and, you know, rural area and everything in the settings. But you see now, because this generation is so techy, most of our children now, the way they operate phones, the way they operate mobile phones, the way they operate computers, and they are now more used to foreign stories. They watch more of these foreign cartoons and everything, and so I felt, see, we can't stop that. We can't stop them from watching cartoons and foreign stories. No, we cannot. To be realistic, we cannot. So what we can do is, see, create a blend between the traditional and the modern. And that was what I did. The Calabash story in my collection, if you see any Yoruba person, when they read it, they will know the source. Like I said earlier on, they will know the source. But beyond knowing the source and everything, I made sure I fused it with a modern storytelling techniques, you know, so that when adults read it, they will understand where the story was coming from. And when children read it, they might not know the source, they might not know the foundation, but they will equally enjoy it, and the message, they will get the message.
The reason why I'm also excited about your collection is that I really believe that every generation of children must have stories, you know, that speak to them about their culture, their background, you know, but culture itself is not static, you know. African children, yes, we can continue to enjoy tales by moonlight that our grandmothers told us. We continue to share those with them, but we must also incorporate the kind of the present, the day-to-day experiences of these children that we're sharing those stories with, which is what you've done very, very beautifully. So what can we expect from you next?
Okay, as it is now, I'm working on 5, stories. I have 5 manuscripts now I'm working on. So, but beyond fiction, I am working on biographical storybooks now. I won't divulge the content of the stories, but just to intimate you so that you can be prepared for me. So I'm working on biographical stories. Also, I have some fictions too that I'm working on. So I'm working on very great stories that will follow this KAC, a collection of African stories for children. So just pay attention. You'll enjoy, the stories I'm working on.
So Where can apart from, I know your books are available on Amazon. That's where I got my my copies. How else can people who want to pick up copies of your book for their children, how can they contact you?
The book is available on Amazon and also at kobo.com. So yeah, you can get the book on those two platforms.
Viewers out there, if you want to reach out to Tony Olaniji, author of Kiesi, a very exciting collection of stories for children aged 4 to 11. You might think, oh, 4 to 11, that's such a wide age range. But what he has done is he has broken the book into sections by age. And for parents, it's a good bargain because you buy a book for your 4-year-old. If you have a 7, 8, 9-year-old, they would also have, there are sections of the book that they can enjoy. And even your 4-year-old would grow, to an age where he or she would enjoy other sections of the book. So please look out for it. And so thank you very much for being a part of the Sankofa Pan-African series. We hope to be talking to you again in the future when you have other publications.